With EVO Weekend just passing, the top players have demonstrated the strengths and prowesses of the Sho archetype in Street Fighter 6, especially if you look at the grand finals. However, the most famous and classic Shoto, Ryu, is missing from the mix. What's hilarious and somewhat sad is the fact that there wasn't even a single Ryu player in top 92, while every other character, except for E Honda, was represented. So why is that? Why is Ryu so much weaker in comparison to his other Shoto counterparts? So I want to do a quick dive into Ryu's kit and the general problems. And for a lot of this video, I'm going to just make raw comparisons to Ken and try to contextualize it. So while Ken represents the rushdown Sho archetype, Ryu is supposed to represent the mid-range footsie version. So naturally, there should be some trade-offs. Ken's offense is scary. Off his conversions, he will on average have higher damage output in comparison, with better corner carry and for cheaper. On block, he's able to run standard offense that you'll see amongst lots of different characters, or use his new Jinrai tool to apply additional pressure. And while this isn't necessarily foolproof, it offers him ways to basically pressure his opponent and RPS accordingly. But Ryu, on the other hand, didn't get much compensation in this particular field. So let's just start off with his offense. Ryu's offense is typical for this game. Regular light chain pressure, no real plus for normal, and unfortunately for him, not a strong way to RPS with additional special moves or special cancelable target combos. And while some of these things are necessary to make a strong character with powerful offense, it's nice to have. So in turn, his offense is, well, rather bland and requires the honest approach to open people up by using his block speed to shimmy or steal his turn in particular areas. If he's able to get a hit, his damage output, well, varies significantly. Light change into DP does a ton of damage for a light starter, just like Ken, to be frank. However, the rest of the starters, especially in the mid screen, can be kind of underwhelming in comparison. You must either sacrifice a ton of damage to get decent corner carry that doesn't even provide you that great of Oki, or you can take the damage for less corner carry by using DP, and finally you can give up damage and corner carry and Oki to get Denjin Charge, which is your win condition. And to be frank, this is fair given his archetype. This forces him to lean more into a mid-range approach and convert off his strong neutral tools. And before you add context of the game, which what I mean by this is if you look at his tools individually, they seem to be a lot stronger than Ken's in neutral. Talking about their normals, their stand heavy punch are quite similar in usage. And after doing some research about it, I learned something very amusing about it. Not only is Ryu's heavy punch disjointed unlike Ken's, it also moves further for just one more recovery frame. Crouching mini kick goes further for one more frame in startup, and canceling into fireball is a lot safer given Ken's higher recovery. And in general, Ryu's stand mini kick is a solid neutral tech, while Ken's has a couple of issues with his. But when you apply context, all these tools that seem better for you fall apart. So while stand heavy punch is technically easier to use, Ken's reward is simply better. Since its special cancel window is so large for both of them, it's not hard to confirm into run DP, providing a lot of mirrorless damage. In comparison, Ryu doesn't have a run DP, and heavy DP doesn't hit at all ranges for that big damage, and even if it did, it's still less damage to run DP. So he must either convert into EX Donkey Kick or Drive Rush for a marginal increase in damage output while spending a ton more resources. The scenario continues across the board, if I'm going to be frank. Crouching medium kick into Drive Rush provides Ken with either a lot more corner carry or a lot more damage depending on what he wants to take. And whilst that medium kick, in my opinion, is better for Ryu as just a general check, in neutral, Drive Rush medium kick actually is a strong niche tool that Ken can use given some specific scenarios. And regarding the fireball, it's hilarious to me how Ken's EX Fireball feels so much better than Ryu's. An example of this is basically if you were to go into a Fireball War and use EX Fireball as Ken, not only will you potentially beat their Fireball if they didn't respond with a EX, you will also be able to Drive Rush behind it for either to get a full combo, and if they blocked it to just get some pressure. In Ryu's case, if you get the knockdown with the EX Fireball, you can't Drive Rush for additional pressure, but you could technically get Denjin Charge instead, or take a little bit of space. So it's still useful just for a different purpose. Without putting too much thought into it, I think Ryu might have like one of the weaker EX Fireballs in this game compared to almost everyone across the cast. EX Sandblast is incredible, obviously EX Sonic Boom, Chun-Li's Fireball works similarly to Ken's in this regard. It's kind of sad. Oh, and special mention to Ken's Roundhouse. Great normal and punch counter provides with solid damage and once again corner carry. So while on paper Ryu's neutral tools are better in mid-range, once you provide context, they consistently provide less damage, corner carry, or require more expensive exchange to make up for the shortcoming with drive gauge. And the only saving grace from my perspective for Ryu, which also comes up short, is Denjin Charge. Denjin alleviates a lot of Ryu's problems. It gives him the damage he needs, the pressure, the corner carry, and lets up on the usage of Drive Gauge. And to be frank, you get a ton of damage from some of these Denjin routes. It even competes or exceeds the other Shotos. The core issue is really just getting Denjin. Due to the long startup, it feels impossible to get Denjin in neutral against competent and aware opponents since it's so easy to punish with just drive rushing on reaction. You sometimes can throw a slow fireball into Denjin, but that typically requires you to be 3/4 away of the screen from your opponent to avoid, once again, being punished. Honestly, the best way to get Denjin is to just sacrifice damage, corner carry, and Oki to achieve it. It often requires you to route into Donkey Kick to get safety. Unless you're routing into H Donkey Kick, you're losing a lot of damage and all the other things mentioned earlier. Not only that, but you can't even get Denjin Charge in the corner while you're sacrificing a ton of damage just based off what I was able to find and cook up. So for such a crucial win condition, it's so hard to just achieve, and it feels like you're sacrificing so much to try to get it. So from my perspective, unless they make Denjin way easier to achieve or significantly pump Ryu's numbers in other areas, he's dead in the water in comparison to Ken, and not necessarily a bad character, just a lot weaker. And I can honestly say, and I usually hate when players say this, there's not a big reason to pick Ryu over Ken when Ken feels like he does basically everything Ryu wants to do, but essentially better. Once again, take that with a grain of salt. Anyway, what do y'all think? Comment, like, subscribe, you know the YouTube stuff, and I'll see y'all next time. This has been Bit of Hit. Peace. Also, I'll try to post more. Baldur's Gate got me fucked up.